James Goulden here, owner of Vision Tech Team. I'm going to show you 10 ways to scale above a million. Now, this title is a bit more clickbait than anything, but the overview is what I've learned in the last 10 years from like a mindset and just from a structural standpoint in order to scale. The first item was to delegate responsibilities, not tasks. Now, most people try to delegate tasks, which is fine. It can be done. But there's a certain level of team member that you need to delegate tasks to instead of responsibilities. There's a book called Strategic Leadership. And ultimately what it's about is there's, several levels of people that you can ultimately try to delegate to. And the end level of delegation is really delegating a responsibility. So that means they have the ability to do it. They have the skill set and they have the motivation. So they're getting paid to do it or have some sort of motivation that they're in it. So if you want to dig more into that, a lot of what I had was from Strategic Leadership. And there's a couple books on the Prussian Army is really, really good at strategic leadership. So Google Prussian Army, and there's a ton of books on how they do it. The second one is around creating processes and optimizing them. So really, this is a bigger picture item around communication. So being able to communicate most effectively and automate the business. The people side is where most of the error handling happens. Or errors happen. So if you can automate or create a process around it, you could really get lower level labor to take care of a lot of it and ultimately create a consistent output. So consistency is key on a lot of businesses, and making sure that you have that is pretty ideal. This also makes your business more sellable. So the more you create processes, the more sellable and easily packaged up your company will be. As well as when you bring on leadership staff members, it's a lot easier for them to understand what's going on if there's processes involved, and a lot easier to onboard people when there are processes in there. And if you really don't have processes or you can't make something into a process, I would, from a mindset standpoint, that's more of like R&D. You're trying to figure out how to get it down to a process. Otherwise, you don't really have a business. You have like a custom services agency. So ultimately figuring out how to create processes and then optimize them from there has just been a huge uptake for scaling past $1 million. The next one is around the ownership mindset. So there's a lot of places that you can go to that have teaching. I mean, Tony Robbins is big on it, Landmark Forum, but a lot of them are around the teaching is that if you don't own all of your thoughts and your, anything that happens in your life, you can't really control it. So even if the power goes out in your house, you need to own that and say, oh man, I should have had a generator. I can't believe I didn't do that. Instead of being like, oh man, the city messed up and they're taking the power out. It's just really instead of delegating blame, you could do more about it when you take responsibility and do something to fix it rather than just say, oh no, it's somebody else's problem. So that's more of a mindset shift, but one of those that really helps you get out of a rut and really helps you scale quickly. It keeps you from being the problem. The fourth one is to fine tune your hiring process. Now this one is around processes, but it's a little bit more specific as you scale. There are, lots of different business models that work up to $1 million, $2 million, $5 million even that work with one person. But ultimately you're going to have to bring other people on. And either those are contractors, W-2 employees, but somehow you have to scale with people. And in order to do that, you really need to fine tune your hiring process so that you're not reactively hiring. One of the worst places you could be in is you need somebody last week instead of, I need somebody in 2 months from now, because that really gives you time to vet them out. But in reality, for every 20 people that you interview that are qualified, like 1 or 2 should get hired. So it's not like, there should be 100 applicants and there's a ton of ways to get, a lot of applicants through there, and really building a sales funnel around your applicants is a great idea. Turn your marketing expertise into a sales funnel, but ultimately from there, making sure that you are optimizing your hiring process, because it's hire slow, fire quick is the fastest model to get into, especially as you scale. One bad hire from a leadership standpoint can be such a terrible problem, and it really trickles down. The fifth one is culture. So really, culture is pretty easy when you're a smaller company because you are there communicating with others, but as you grow, you're not communicating with all the team members on a weekly, even a quarterly basis sometimes. But one of the big things is making sure that you have your core values and the belief system that your company's using. And the earlier you get that started and documented, the better. And more or less utilize, like really making sure that you have a culture that's documented and you're hiring, firing, promoting. A lot of decisions are based on those core beliefs that you have. We have a lot of we have our vivid vision, we have our core values. I think I have another post around specifically our core values. And, we take it very, very seriously. We have a virtual culture, so our communication around culture needs to be top notch. The sixth one is around strategic learning. And a lot of people use strategic, I coined this phrase internally just because it's more of like a long-term or proactive learning, really getting a clear picture of what your, 3-5 year goals are. And then, not only what needs to happen to get those done, but what you need to learn, who you need to become. There's the newest Alice in Wonderland there's a thing called the Oraculum. So it's, it gives you a whole picture of your life. And, so that would be like the 3-year goal. And in the middle, it has you need to be this. And Alice keeps saying, I'm not the right Alice yet. But ultimately, it's, taking those steps and strategic steps to get to where you need to be, especially from an education standpoint. Any skill can be learned as long as you put time and attention towards it. The next one is strategic priority setting. And this is more for accountability and on the leadership and business team. Once the leadership team gets a lot less involved in the operations, it's a lot easier for them to be wasting their time because they're not acclimated with it. So really getting clear on your priorities on a quarterly, monthly, weekly, daily level, and making sure that those priorities are done before anything else, so you don't get stuck in the weeds. Ultimately, the highest paid team members are the leadership team, and if they are getting stuck in the weeds, you're not paying them appropriately. For example, paying like a leadership team member to be sweeping the floors instead of delegating that out or figuring out a process for that is just a bad use of time. So just making sure that everybody's time is being utilized and that they're setting their priorities and they're keeping them. The whole system runs on success metrics, especially when it comes to the highest level team members, is that they're very, very accountable to results. So results are more around, did you get these priorities done? If not, why? The next one is increasing leadership and management skills. So this is a big one when it comes to scaling. Again, with the hiring component, is making sure you really understand the soft skills, the people skills, the coaching, the really how to manage effectively and how to fire quickly and hire slowly. And once you get a lot of those pieces and to really proactively identify issues early is a skill set that, it makes its way out in spades because it's one of those proactive things that you can see coming a mile away if you're acclimated to leadership and management skills. The ninth one is over communicate. One of the biggest issues that happens in almost any business, especially if you're scaling quickly, is communication goes down. Everybody thinks that they have the biggest, the big picture path. But if you really ask all of your team, 90% of them are going to be really off on what your bigger picture is for the company and what direction it's going. So it's really over communicating, especially if you're scaling quickly, is a paramount activity so that everybody stays on the same page. Everybody feels like they're not being outgrown. Everybody is on a path in which they feel that they're contributing to the bigger picture. So making sure to communicate is one of the biggest scaling tools that we have. And then 10 is around just environments, really catering your environment for success. So the people you hang around with, the habits that you keep, a habit of smoking or drinking or, whatever really gets you in if it doesn't serve you, let it go. And making sure that everything that you do has a purpose and the people in your life have a purpose for being there and that you're in a situation set up for success. One of our guys from GS Network has a book called Willpower Doesn't Work, and it's an awesome book. Heavily suggest reading it. But the premise is that willpower is finite, and setting an environment and habit change is really the biggest way to make any realizable change in your life. So anyway, thank you so much. Hope you read the article. Talk to you later.